Welcome to Live from My Drum Room. My guest today is 7-time Grammy Award-winning jazz drummer, composer, and band leader, Jeff Tain Watts. Jeff is an old friend of mine, and I'm excited to have him on the show today. He's recorded and performed with literally a who's who in the music industry, including Wynton Marsalis, Branford Marsalis, George Benson, Harry Connick Jr., McCoy Tyner, Kenny Garrett, Michael Brecker, Betty Carter, Kenny Kirkland, Courtney Pine, and the list goes on and on. He's also won the Modern Drummer Readers Poll for Best Jazz Drummer twice. And did I mention he's won 7 Grammys? I think I might have mentioned that. It actually may be more by the time we're done with this show today, so we'll have to check at the end to see. But I'm excited to have Jeff Tain Watts here today, and I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks for listening. Please welcome the great Jeff Tain Watts, 7-time Grammy Award-winning Jeff Tain Watts. Wait a minute, what time is it? It could be 8-time Grammy Award.
It could be right now. Wait, wait a minute. This. Oh, look!
It just fell out of the sky.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's raining Grammys on Tain.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man, it's so good to see you, man.
Yeah, always great, my man. You're the best. Yes, definitely.
Thank you, and you're the best too. And I'm going to go backwards for 1 second. Well, a lot of what we talk about is going to be going backwards, as you can imagine. But I want to tell everybody that already there's a whole bunch of people asking questions. So I promise I'll get to as many of these as I can. But I just want to tell everybody how honored I am to know Jeff going back to, by my recollection, 1980. Is that about right? Does that seem?
Oh yeah,
79,
well, I got to Berkeley for the fall '79 semester, but I wasn't hanging out that much because I have this whole thing where my drum kit got lost for the first semester. So probably like in the winter of '80 or something like that, I started.
Okay. Yeah, and I started like at the end of '79 at Wurlitzer.
Wow.
So that's about So it would have been early 1980, and man, I'm not just saying this because you're a famous jazz drummer now, Grammy Award-winning drummer, but I just dug you right from the minute I met you just because of that. What you just did, right? That smile, like you were just this funny, cool dude that used to come in and and I remember the Gretsch set that you bought, and that was
It was refreshing just being in Boston. I had done 2 years at Duquesne University, and I was like more of a classical major and stuff. So I mean, I got to Boston, and you can just imagine me coming from Pittsburgh, and all these great musicians at the school and the scene in Boston, and going to Michael's and Pooh's Pub and all the shops and all the colleges and stuff like that. So it was like a very liberating time.
Yeah, good. There was definitely a scene to soak up in those days too. Like you say, the club scene, like a lot of towns, it's not what it used to be, but it was what a scene it was back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a Berkeley student too, you could, to like be able to go out and play during the week and with some great players and be part of that.
Yeah.
And Smitty, I feel like came along right about the same time. And
Smitty came in, Gene Jackson, and cats were already on the scene. Tommy Campbell was doing his thing all over the place, and Cindy Blackman.
Tommy.
So many cats, man. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, man. And I'm glad you mentioned, coming from a classical background, and I didn't know that till recently, and I was going to ask you about that, but I wanted to ask you first. You studied classical music at Duquesne, but you were playing drums like in high school, right? Or were you playing? I know you played in the marching band. Did you say too?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely got into music from the school music system. So during the day, all my activities were, marching band and concert band. Eventually, I was in drum corps and starting to do percussion ensemble and new music. And then the drum set, I was mostly self-taught. I had a kid at home, and I would just like play with the radio and stuff. And then eventually like fusion and things like that. But yeah.
And that wasn't your real focus early on, right? It was really, you were really kind of like kind of more thinking you were going to pursue classical, like classical playing timpani, I think is what you studied at Duquesne.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't, most of my performance was classical at the time. When I got to Duquesne, eventually I was, I was playing in the jazz band, and I started playing. I played in a regional R&B band that had like one tune that was on the radio and stuff like that. But that's kind of like where I was leaning until I got to Berkeley and I started to play more drums. Started to
Yeah.
think about that as a career. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, man. I assumed like a lot of drummers that you came to Berkeley as already a pretty fully formed drummer. You know what I mean? Like you came in there as a cat that had been playing back in Pittsburgh and, on the scene there, and you'd come into. So that's amazing that you. I guess what I'm getting at, Jeff, is that it's pretty amazing that not long after you got to Berkeley, you hooked up with Wynton, right, and started playing with him in the early '80s.
Yeah. I guess one of the funny things is, when I was at Duquesne, I was kind of like a fusion guy. I wanted to be like many people. I wanted to be Billy Cobham or Narada or some, Steve Ball or Lenny White or somebody like that. And you know, but then I started to learn about traditional jazz, and I studied with the great Roger Humphreys in Pittsburgh. So basically, in a 2-year span, I found out who Charlie Parker was and who Art Blakey was and Max Roach was, and like within 2 years, I was in New York working with Wynton. So so all this time I've been kind of backtracking and trying to, keep abreast of what's happening, but learn about the tradition.
Yeah, man. No, I just that fascinates me that it things happen so quickly for you, but that's because of you win Grammys. You're not gonna you're not gonna.
Who is it? Who is it? No.
Oh man! So when you were starting off as a young player, were there some influences like that? Who were some of the people you listened to as a younger player?
Yeah, I guess when I was coming up, at first I had kind of a toy drum set, and everything was kind of random. And then when I got in perhaps the 6th grade, I had been studying snare drum for like a year in the school music system. And I used to, they loaned me a snare drum, and I used to carry it home like in a shopping bag and do my lesson and stuff. And then I think in 6th grade, I got a Sears and Roebuck drum set. They were actual wooden drums, like maybe a rack tom and a 20-inch kick and a snare drum with a little cymbal mount and, one of those real tin kind of cymbals up there. So
that's like my little star kit right there. Right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. But I had one of those, and I had that for like a year, and then I didn't have a hi-hat, and then I guess the theme from Shaft came out, so everybody had to have a hi-hat. So I wanted. I saved my allowance and I bought like a hi-hat downtown for $20, $25 or something like that. But I was playing along with the radio, like R&B radio, trying to play with James Brown and early Stevie Wonder and Parliament and Mandrill and later on like a little rock and roll, like Deep Purple and people got me into like Black Sabbath and stuff. But that was kind of what I would do. During the day, I would rehearse all this classical stuff at school, and then I would come home at night and just play with hits from the radio. Stevie Wonder and whatever. But so I did that for a while, and then when I got halfway through high school, my oldest brother James, he started working he was going to the University of Pittsburgh, so he started working at a college record store. And then, this was like when fusion was really hot. So he started bringing home these records for me. Like when my birthday would happen, he'd bring home like Billy Cobham Crosswinds, like check this out, or Return to Forever, Where Have I Known You Before, the Romantic Warrior and stuff like that. So I got into that and got really deep into Mahavishnu Orchestra. I started, going to concerts when they would play in town, and going to see. I saw Zappa with Vinny back in the day, and Terry Bozzio and all that stuff, and whatever. So that was kind of my thing. Like playing like funk and fusion on the drums, and just trying to work on my technique. I was in drum corps. I was in this corps, the Pittsburgh Royal Crusaders. And I never went to DCI. In the summertime, I was always involved in orchestra. But the corps, I guess one year they got to like 9th in DCI and stuff like that. So it was a very legit corps. And
did you play snare drum? Did you play?
I played like quads, and I played xylophone one year, like marching, like kind of like a thing. Yeah, I played that. But yeah, so it was fun. I was just really my whole time, like in high school, music was an activity, and I just I dug doing it. It was like I did music. I tried to do sports and was horrible. I was like, but every year they would come and try to get me to, because I was kind of big. So the football coach, come on, man, you got to join the team. I'm like, man, yeah, I'm gonna be terrible, But for a minute, I was kind of like a lineman, like offensive, defensive lineman. I was a horrible track athlete, like the weakest shot putter and discus thrower. Terrible. But then eventually, everything was music. Everything was music all the time. And another thing, I definitely have to commend my high school band director, John A. Thompson, and also one of my early private instructors, Michael Coomer, who was in addition to being, he was like an alternate with the symphony, and he was kind of like a drum corps clinician, and he actually used to come to Boston and do things for the Lancers, I think.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, for 27th Lancers and stuff like that.
In Revere, Mass.
Yeah, right. So
yeah, but
they would just expose me to stuff. It's like if like Oscar Peterson was in town, or Chick Corea, or just anything, Weather Report or something like that might be in town. They would take me and another drummer friend of mine and just like take us to stuff. I remember they used to take us to West Virginia University to see. They had like a very strong percussion program. This guy Phil Faini, who I think is still around. We go down there and see the percussion ensemble. It would be great. They would have like examples of new music and contemporary percussion, and also like African percussion and stuff like that. Really, really great department. But I just got exposed to that stuff. But I'll say that the thing was, I was checking out fusion, and then I started to see I wanted to be versatile. So from fusion, I was into like the power guys like Billy and Alphonse Mouzon and people like that, and then also people that were slick like Harvey Mason and Gadd and stuff like that. And then I started reading about Harvey, and that he had gone to New England Conservatory, and he was versatile and could play mallets and play all this different stuff. So it was kind of like similar to my background. So I started aspiring in that direction. So what led me to swinging jazz, or snake jazz, as they say on Rick and Morty, what led me to that is kind of like I just wanted to not suck if somebody called me for a jingle or a soundtrack and play some swingy stuff. So I wanted to find out how to do it better, or really learn about it. And, I had played in jazz band, but I always say this, there's a way that in America you can be in a stage band program, and they have like very specific music for stage band that's arranged like that and composed for that. And you can be involved in that and not really know the tradition somehow. You know what I mean? It's like its own little world and whatever. But this great piano player that was in the conservatory with me at Duquesne, David Budway, he said, man, if you want to find out about swinging jazz, you should go to Roger Humphreys. And so this is back in the olden days. So he's like, yeah, he's in the phone book. Just look in the phone book. And
so I looked
in the phone book, and he's like, yeah, Jeff, just come on over. So I used to go to his house every other week, and like catch like 3 buses and walk to his house, and you know, he would just show me stuff and then let me come to his gigs, and you know, give me like the essence of what traditional jazz was about and stuff.
What kind of, so at that point, so you'd graduated high school, you're like maybe your first year at
Yeah,
Duquesne at this
yeah.
point, like 18. And by that point, like you could read, I'm sure really well, right? Just from all the years in school band, you could walk in there and he could put something in front of you and you'd be able to know what it was. And but what kind of stuff did he what were some of the things he showed you, or you know,
You
to
know, it was kind of wild. It was like you know, just like maybe like he gave me like a strong like kind of shuffle feel to reinforce the swing. He showed me
yeah.
what to
Yeah.
play, and like if I had to play like a kind of like a 6/8 kind of Latin feel or Elvinish feel and things like that. Some stuff with the brushes. Just I will say, whenever I first played snare drum, I learned traditional grip, and I played that. And then whenever I was in 8th grade, you know, the teacher that I told you about, he was a drum corps guy, and you know, there was like that
Yep.
big match grip movement, like in the mid 70s or something like that. It was
Yeah.
like, wow, match grip, yeah, and everybody, you know, doing it. And then that's when Max Roach switched to match grip, and he played that for the rest of his career. And so they switched my whole school district to match grip, and so I was doing it, and you know, and learning marimba and timpani and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, match grip, this is cool. But then when I got with Mr. Humphreys, he was like, man, you playing that match grip. For some reason, he equated that with like a European aesthetic or something like that. It's like the traditional grip was like the soulful grip. And this was like, you know, maybe a little bit corny or something. Like I would
Yeah.
almost think
Yeah.
it's the other way around or whatever, in a way. You know, it's kind of like this is like the first thing you do with a pair of sticks, and this is to accommodate a parade drum, I guess, or whatever, the sling from the parade drum. But anyway, he he insisted that I play some traditional grip also. So now I switch back and forth all the time. I don't even think about it, you know.
That's great, man. I was gonna, because I every time, when I see pictures of you or if I see videos, I feel like you're playing traditional almost all the time that I think of you, but that's great that you can switch so comfortably,
I'll tell you, it's
you
kind
know.
of like when I have to really play some stuff around the drums, I'm playing match grip. But for swing swag, you know, there's something about just kind of sinking down that
Yeah,
traditional grip. And yeah.
yeah. Do you find, Jeff, that you're if you're playing more like articulate type stuff too, if you're playing more fills and more technical stuff, do you find it's easier to do that traditional grip? Like you can get your left hand is going to be more. I don't know. It's maybe it could be the opposite of what you think, but do you find when starting as traditional grip that's still the more comfortable grip to play more technical stuff? I guess is what I'm asking.
There's certain little finessey things, little kind of intricate, cute things, I guess. I easily have like more power and I mean, ah, yeah, for me now, it's kind of like my traditional grip is purely for swag and jazz comping and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. There was a question I'm gonna ask before it slides away from Michael Powers, an old friend of mine, and yeah, thanks for the question, Michael. And he's asking me to ask you your top three uh, influences. And I know you mentioned Billy and Harvey, but who would you say your top three? If you, and one of those loaded questions, I
It's
know,
hard.
because
That's hard, man.
yeah, it's hard. Yeah,
That's hard. Yeah, you know. I-
maybe like going back to that time, like the guys that really sort of like
Yeah, you
you
know,
listen to.
I guess from back then it would be like like maybe like Narada and Harvey. You know, I wanted to have that strength game, and Narada had that, you know, and he was funky. And you
Yeah,
know, Harvey Mason I dug, and
Were you listening much to Tony in those days?
You know
Was
what?
that?
I got into Tony like right before whenever I started to get prepared to play with Wynton. It was kind of like I hadn't been playing traditional jazz very long, and for some reason they liked me and they wanted to, Branford kind of recruited me out of school. Branford was in college with us too, like
Yeah,
he and
yeah.
Donald Harrison. So he pulled me into the band, and he was like, so I just tried to use my logical mind because I didn't want to get fired. So I was like, man, who is this guy? Who's this guy Wynton Marsalis anyway? Who is he? I'm like, who's he been playing with? Okay, he played with Art Blakey. So I got to really try to swing like very, very hard. So I'm like working on shuffles and working on that. And then I was working on okay, he's from New Orleans. I know nothing about New Orleans music. So I'm like, okay, I'm listening to Louis Armstrong with the Hot Five and the Hot Sevens. I'm hearing Paul Barbaran. I'm listening to Louis Armstrong at Symphony Hall with Sid Catlett and stuff like that. And, James Black and people like that. And then he had been playing, he had just come off the road with Herbie. So it's like the impossible task of trying to assimilate Tony Williams,
Yeah.
But I mean, as it sits right now, of course heavily influenced by like Elvin and Ed Blackwell in a certain kind of way. At the same time, there's a large Latin influence on my playing. So I have to talk about somebody like Shanquito and my brother El Negro and Steve Barrios, people like that. And I come from that fusion background, so definitely Billy. There was a time when Steve Gadd was my favorite drummer, Jerry Brown, people like that. And then growing up, I wanted to be, if I could wake up and be in Earth, Wind and Fire, if I could just be Fred White for like a month,
Yeah, man. Yeah.
it'd be like a really
Yeah.
slamming thing. I loved him. I love Jerome Braley. I love, I love the P-Funk. John Bonham later, like Ian Pace and people like that, but a lot of people though.
Yeah. That's great, man. Those are really varied, similar but varied influences too that make up who you are.
Yeah.
Obviously, it all goes into that melting pot and it comes out you.
Yeah.
Man, you got so many questions too, Jeff. I'm going to just try to throw a couple your way for the. Let's see. There was something here I was going to come back to. Hang on a second, everybody. Wow, so many questions. Slow down on the questions, everybody. Scott Goulding said, I heard that a Berklee drum teacher discouraged you to continue playing drums, which blows my mind. But since I went there myself, I'm not surprised. Oops, that could be a diss on Berklee. We don't want to do that.
No.
But was there some experience where one of your instructors said, focus on classical, not drum set? Or
it was kind of like now that I teach more, like I go out and do workshops and master classes and residencies and stuff like that. I have like a little, I think back on my own experience and I can dig it. It's like sometimes I'll get impatient with a student, and it's kind of like, on a certain level, at a certain time when you're teaching somebody, you can teach people with music and play them examples of things, but a lot of time you're trying to build like a framework or build like a base so that they can go, you'll need for them to absorb something that's kind of anal, or it's like some building blocks or some stuff, and it doesn't seem like it's leading to anything. And if you don't do it, then you can't install all this other stuff. So it might be like, so I had a teacher who will be nameless, and he had like linear patterns. It was like combinations of left and right hand and right foot and left foot, every possibility of that, which is useful somewhere. Somewhere you're gonna have to play your right hand and then your left foot and then your left, it's somewhere you're going to
Yeah.
use that, but it's not where I was at. So I was a little lax in installing that system and stuff like that. So he got kind of frustrated and he just kind of told me that I should think about doing something else, you know.
Jesus. I'm sorry, man. I wonder if I know who this teacher
I'll
is.
say his name if you want. He probably won't.
Is it or is his initials GG?
No, his
No,
initials are
no.
TN.
TN.
Yeah, initials are TN. You'll never guess him. But I'll say
I'm
his
trying to
name.
think
You
of
want me
who.
to say his name? Can I say it?
Sure. Yeah.
He's a pretty cool drummer, and he's actually kind of like a Tony disciple. And his name was Tony Notarfonso. That was his name.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was like during that period in Boston when all the chafy stuff was going around, patterns for drum set, and you know,
Yeah.
and it is true. It's like you kind of learn these patterns and groupings and linear groupings, and then you learn how to fit them all together so that they add up to 16 or add up to 12, and and you put your foot in there, and then you associate like polyrhythmic stuff with the groupings, and and eventually you can build like a nice thing, and I can dig it. But yeah, he did it though. He definitely did it. And so I just took it from
No,
yeah.
that's cool. And like you say, you as a teacher yourself now you can look back at that and go, yeah, man, I get he was trying to give me something to put in my toolbox. And maybe you just felt it wasn't something you wanted to spend a lot of time on, and
Yeah, I'll tell you, I have students now. And I'll have music stuff and field stuff and basis of with drums it's very easy because there's a lot of things that involve actual music, but then if you can go down a rabbit hole of things that have nothing to do with music but everything to do with drums. It's just all kind of like weird little. You can get as weird as you want to, which is
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
But
yeah, exactly.
yeah. So I mean, you have to reinforce that with some music too at the same time. But I'll have students and I'll give them stuff and I'm like, man, if you would just get this together, this is going to be the key, and then I can give you all this other stuff that relates to what you're trying to do, and you'll be able to do it and have freedom and power and be cool. I'll let you do some more questions.
No, man, this is great. This is I love that you're making it really easy for me
Okay.
between the good questions we're getting and you're just letting it go. I love
Yeah.
it. So many people say hello. Uh, let's see. So Antonio Gracie, how did he work on a lot of his metric modulation tempo stuff, playing a different pulse within the original tempo of a tune? Did you work with a metronome?
Okay. So, you know, I got I started to become aware of polyrhythm in general. And I will say when I was in the conservatory, one of the things that fascinated me, they had the device that's called a trinome. Have you seen one of those?
No, I
There's
haven't.
a thing that classical composers use, and it's like a wind-up box. It's a wind-up box, and there'll be like three levers that you can push across, and you might push one to three, you might push one to seven. It's like a music box in a way, and you might push one to five, and then you wind it up and you turn it on, and it clicks by.
So all those time signatures play at the
They
same
play at
time?
the same time.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, I've never heard of this.
Yeah,
Wow.
look up trinome. I mean, now you don't really need it
Okay.
because digitally there's so many ways they can do that, but back then it
Yeah.
was like, wow. So I got interested in that. And then when I got to Berkeley, that was a big thing. And then I became aware of course, the great Ken with Denard, and people were like really starting to freak with polyrhythm. So it started to interest me. And I just basically I started to just sit in my room at school and write all the different possibilities, like, playing 4/5 and 3/5 and stuff over seven. And then eventually I just kind of, stumbled into the basic formula of computing polyrhythm, where I always say if you have 4/5, you go to the second number and you say five, okay, there's five beats. Then you go back to the four and you say let's divide each beat into 4 equal parts. So if these are quarter notes, then you take the 16 notes in 5. So you have 5 beats of 16 notes. And then you go back to the 5 in the equation and you accent every 5th note to compute 4/5. So I started doing that for everything. And you know, I wanted to add that modulation thing or expound upon it in the jazz tradition as an extension of what Tony Williams was doing with Miles Davis, and I'll say like Danny Richmond was doing with Charles Mingus and stuff like that. You know, a lot of times Mingus, they would like play in a swinging time and then play in the triplet time above that. So I just wanted to make myself very comfortable playing anything on top of anything, and also initiating the polyrhythms, like either on the one and resolving on the one, or in the middle of the bar or whatever and stuff like that. And so I got into the linear stuff, pure polyrhythm stuff, like really playing four, like 5 beats or 7 beats over 4 or over 3, and getting, you know, a lot of it is in your ear. Yeah, a lot of it is your ear becoming accustomed to that texture of that time against the basic tempo and stuff like that. So I got comfortable with that. So a lot of the things I play are combinations of those things, and also what happens in African music or Afro-Cuban music, where everything kind of bends. Everything kind of bends.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the difference between clave and 4/4 and clave is 6/8. It's like they're the same. They work against it in conjunction with each other, but somehow they're different too at the same time. So I kind of take advantage of that with the European concept of polyrhythm that I explained, and you know, I just kind of mix them up, you know, to try to get to something that's like emotional and organic.
Yeah, man, with great feeling too, I'm sure. You know,
I'm trying to get to it.
Which is so, you know, to me, that's the magic when you can play all those things and just, you know, the way you do it too, and make it feel the way you do.
You know, I'll say when I do stuff, I try to have some kind of like organic reference or a reason to do it that's, you know, that's either from nature or emotional and stuff like that. Some kind of inspiration, some kind of thing to shoot for, as opposed to I'm doing this because I can do it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's important to me. Go ahead.
No, that's great, man. That's great. Had a great question from Peter Retzlaff, who I think you know, Pete.
Yeah.
Drummers Collective. Yeah. And he said, when did you start composing? I love your tunes.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'll tell you, I had a block, you know. I mean, I took some composition at Berkeley, but I was too involved with hanging out and just jamming with people and trying to go to college parties and stuff like that. So I didn't. I wasn't very seriously. I wasn't very diligent with my composition harmony classes and stuff like that. And so I would be like playing with all these people, and you know, you could really get paid for putting songs on recordings and things like that. And Wynton would, come on, man, write something, man. You'll make some money, man. Come on, we know you're thinking about something. Yeah. You know, you got a big head. You know, you're thinking about something. You know, come on. But you know,
big brain.
Yeah. But you know, Branford and Kenny Kirkland and Jerry Allen and all these people, they were like, man, write something. And I was just like embarrassed. I was embarrassed. But I will say that while I was at the Tonight Show, that you know, Kenny Kirkland and I, we lived together, and he encouraged me. And he's, you know, because I have great ears. I have perfect pitch. So he just said, man, forget about rules and just write what you hear, because there's a certain amount of natural harmony that takes place. I mean, drummers, you know, we have it more together than we think, because we're sitting in the middle of all this music all the time, and you're listening to stuff, and you hear how things resolve, and you hear, you know, you can hear if a progression is good or if it's bad, you know, and you know, so he just encouraged me to write, as opposed to you know, embracing all the having to have all the rules in place and all this, you know, the box stuff or whatever. He's like, you already know how music sounds. So I just started writing. And people encouraged me to use like rhythmic devices that I was using to arrange other people's music and like stuff like that. So, you know, yeah, my frame of reference is pretty wide. Like I have stuff that's it's based on booze. There's stuff that's based on like I have one tune, the Impaler, and there's a vamp in it that's in 7/4, but it's based on skin type by the Ohio Players. It could be from anywhere. You know,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. When did you discover? When did you realize that you have perfect pitch? How old were you when?
You know what? I knew I had something different, but I didn't know what it was. And so I'll say like when I was in elementary school, one of my brothers had a like like the early little reel to reel tape decks. You like
Yeah,
record music off the radio and try to be hip and stuff like that.
totally. Yeah,
And
yeah,
so we'd be playing stuff from the radio on this thing, and then eventually it would get slower, like the battery would wear down. So
yeah.
instead of Cold Sweat being in D, I don't care, Dean. Instead of it being up there, it would be down there. I don't care. I don't care about your past. And I would be like, man, it's slowing down. And my brothers wouldn't be able to hear it. They'd be like, "Oh, get out of here, man! You're just messing with me about this." And so
Yeah. Wow.
I could always recognize pitch. And so, but then whenever I was doing the classical thing in high school, um, I gravitated to the timpani, and I just started playing it. And everybody was like, "How are you doing that?" I'm like, "What?" And everybody needed a tuning fork or needed a pitch pipe. And I was just going and tune. I was like, okay, I need a B flat and an E flat. I would just do it. And so then somebody told me, probably in 10th grade, they said, you have perfect pitch. And they said that 1 in 10,000 people has it, and it's pitch recognition, and you could kind of develop
Yeah.
something close to it, but you're born with it. So that's what it is.
I was just gonna say, yeah. My understanding is, yeah, you're born with it, man. That's the gift of all gifts. Besides your good looks,
Well, yeah, I mean,
that's
I can't help anybody with that. It's definitely.
no man. I didn't. That's fantastic. I didn't know that. That's incredible,
Yeah, yeah.
man.
Smitty has it too. Smitty has perfect.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, talking about Marvin Smitty Smith, by the way, for those of you,
Yeah.
yeah, the great Marvin Smitty Smith, who will be on a future episode as well. Uh, track my man down. But I got to just quickly give you a little shout out from our buddy Vince Wilburn, who sends his love to you and me.
Yes.
Yo V. All right, and I've got a couple questions I want to just throw your way too. So you talked early on about within that kind of
That's for Venom. That's for VMAC.
oh V, yeah,
Thank you,
for V,
VMAC.
yes,
That's
yes,
fine.
yes. Thank you. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was going to say the number two when you did that. I'm like, okay, can you read minds too? I'm like, whoa, what is going on? No, you mentioned within a couple of year period, you had left Berkeley, moved to New York at that point to work with. When you left school, I guess I always want to think it was Branford, but it was Wynton Marsalis first that you kind of joined his band, right?
Yeah, yeah. But Branford kind of put the band together.
He did.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, because I guess I associate you more with Branford because of the later years, the Tonight Show and all
Yeah.
that. So yeah, okay. So you basically, like a lot of drummers, like a lot of musicians, when you went to Berkeley, did you think you'd graduate? I mean, were you kind of looking long term, or were you thinking I want to go there, I want to play, I want to learn stuff, meet people, and
Uh,
because it seems like I'll let you finish, Jeff. But I was going to say I feel like your generation was more like that, like Vinny, and you mentioned Kenwood and all these great drummers. Cindy was there around the same time you were there. That kind of didn't stick around too long. When the right opportunity came along, it's like you take it.
yeah.
So I wondered if you had the idea of graduating, but then this opportunity came, or were you just thinking, I want to hook up with some great players and go?
Yeah, everything is pretty unconscious with me. It's like, you know, especially within my family, I feel like it was important for me to go to college and get a degree and finish school, and
Yeah.
then I didn't grow up with a lot of professional, you know, I didn't really know like very many professional musicians personally. Like most of the people I knew in Pittsburgh, they might play every Friday at the Whoopie Bar or something like that. They might be in a band or something like that. But they might work in
Yeah.
a steel mill or something like that. They might have like a whole nother job. So I mean, I pursued music because my teachers told my parents that I should do it. They said like he can do this. If he wants to do it, he should do it. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I was not afraid, but there was a period of time, like I think when I applied to Carnegie Mellon University, I was considering a double major in like music and computer science because I was really good with math. And then I told somebody the other day, it was also during a time like late 70s, early 80s, where they were encouraging minorities to pursue careers in engineering. It was kind of like a big thing. It's like, hey, get a
Mhm.
job and it's good. And they were trying to be inclusive, and they were pushing people in that direction. But when I was at school, I was just happy to play with people all the time. Everybody just kind of pushed me into everything. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. This guy heard me, and this cat wanted to jam and whatever. And then I just started playing around Boston. Playing at Satches and playing little clubs and stuff like that. But I thought I was going to graduate. I really thought I was going to graduate, and then
Yeah.
but then I started commuting into New York a little bit, but just mostly just going down there and staying at somebody's house over Thanksgiving. And then we'll go in the Village Vanguard or go in different clubs and look. Wow, this is cool. These people are out there playing. But it was encouraging seeing, when I was in Boston, I guess it started to be more of an option because I would see young people interacting with masters. So I would go to Lulu White's and see like Johnny Griffin, but Kenny Washington is playing. He's like 18 or 19 years old, just got out of high school, but he's playing with somebody that I heard on an Art Blakey record and, that I admired. And while I was at Berkeley, I guess I started seeing, I went to see McCoy Tyner and Ronnie Barrage is playing with him. He felt like a reasonably young person and stuff like that. So it seemed like an option. And then, Smitty started commuting and working with John Hendricks, and Branford started playing with Clark Terry and Art Blakey and stuff like that. But, I didn't really foresee it for myself. But then, after like two or three semesters of Berkeley, it's like, I'm recording Wynton's first record. And okay, so I recorded it. And I probably could have moved to New York after recording it, but my parents were like, go back to school. So I went back to school, but I'm starting to commute to New York. So Ron Carter hears about me. So I'm like in his band. So I started jumping on the bus and going to New York to play with him, to play with Lou Soloff and stuff like that. And then finally, I guess it was time for Wynton's recording to come out. And Branford was already in New York. And so I was walking through the Berkeley dorm, back with the payphones on the wall and stuff like that. Everybody would line up to call home and
Yeah. Oh my. Yeah.
reverse charges and call the family and stuff like that. And so I was in the dorm. I was walking up the hall, and somebody was on the phone, and they were like, "Yeah, Jeff just went down the hall," and they were talking to Branford. So Branford was like, "Get him on the phone. Put him on the phone." And I said, "What's happening?" He's like, "Man, you got to move to New York. Don't go back to school for the winter semester. Don't. This is like winter, January '82, that semester. Don't go back to school." And I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, we're starting a band. Just go home. Go home. Go home and we'll call you. We'll call you in like March or April or something like that." I was like, "Really? All right." So I went home. I told my parents, I said, "Man, I'm just going to be around here." And my dad was like, "What?" He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna play with this guy, and back then nobody could say Wynton's name. They were like, Wilton or Wynton. Who is that? Wynton? What kind of name is that? Who is that?" Yeah, this guy, he's really exciting. He's gonna, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people remember the first time they heard like somebody like Wynton like really play the trumpet that well. It's like it was obvious that he was gonna
Yeah.
be have some notoriety for something. So I just was at home. My dad was like, "Okay, all right, just be home." But that lasted about 2 weeks. He's looking at me on the couch, like eating up snacks and everything. He's like, "Man, you might have to go get a job, man." It's like I don't know nothing about this, but they were cool. And then I just moved to New York and crashed on this floor, and then all of a sudden I was in the scene, and everybody
Yeah.
was so popular, so we were. So, Art Blakey lived up the hall. I used to go up and sit and watch him play the piano or get in his car. He had a Rolls Royce. He'd take me and cruise around Central Park. It's like a dream, it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
And you were like 22,
yeah,
right? I mean, like,
yeah,
yeah, man, unbelievable. Yeah.
crazy.
Well, I remember we talked about it before. Like, little side story. This little Gretsch drum set had come in, traded in at Wurlitzer where I was working. That's where I met Tain. Everybody watching. If I didn't mention that earlier, and so many, yeah, so many great memories. Anyway, this Gretsch kit comes in. Was it Champagne Sparkle? Is that? Am I
It
remembering
was
that right?
kind of
Or
like that grayish blue oystery thing. Grayish blue
oh, it
kind of
was
pearl.
okay.
Yeah.
That satin flame kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess so. It's like,
Like,
yeah, it's
okay,
like little, yeah, it's kind of like grayish
yeah.
blue. Yeah.
And was it an 18-inch bass drum and a 12 and a 14, or a
It was a
20-inch bass
20.
drum? 20 and a 12 and a
Yeah.
14, maybe. Yeah, okay. And we had it for sale, and you came in and looked at it a couple of times, and you go, man, these drums, and you're like, I know, and eventually you bought
Yeah.
them, which was great, and I remember thinking, man, I should have bought those, because they were such great drums. But I was so happy you did, because you'd come in and look at them and you go, oh man, they're still here. I'm coming back for these, Johnny D. I'm coming back for them, and you did. So fast forward, a couple of years later, I'd left. I'd moved to LA. I'm working for Simmons Drums. I see you at a NAMM show in Chicago. By then, you were big time Jeff Tain Watts playing with, I guess, in Wynton's band,
Yeah.
and had a Sonar endorsement. And I don't know if you remember this. You were climbing up like on a display in the Sonar booth, like up high. They had these drums set
In
up high
Chicago.
in Chicago. Yeah, and this is typical Tain. You're like goofing around. You climb up. There's a drum set. It was like the end of the show, and a friend that I was with recognized you, and he said, "That's Jeff Watts." And I said, "Oh, I know him." I said, I know him. He was at Berkeley, and we go back to And you saw me, and you yelled down. You go, "Johnny D, I still got those drums." and my friend was so impressed. He was like, "Wow, you really do know him." So anyway, thank you for doing that. You gave me some good cred, but that was so funny.
And that Chicago, that was like a NAMM show, right?
Yeah, it was at the old Chicago NAMM show in the summertime.
You know who I met then? And I think they were like a little high school kid, kind of playing in a Buddy Rich zone. Was a very young Gary Novak.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
totally. I think I saw him playing at the Zildjian booth or Yamaha booth or somebody's booth that same year. Yes,
yeah.
he was a kid. He was just a kid.
Hmm.
Yeah, playing his butt off. Yeah.
Yeah, so those drums I had, it was really cool. I wish I don't still have them, but it's really weird because I went through a thing with this. I did something that, don't feel bad, but I did something kind of semi-disgraceful. Like, drummers we go through this trend. You can almost feel it coming. Like,
I
you
can.
can. Maybe I should wait. Maybe I should wait. But we go through this trendy thing, and I let somebody like strip the drums. But before I did that, this makes it even worse. I was rehearsing with Ron Carter somewhere in Midtown, and across the street there was kind of like a music store, Charles Aponte Music, maybe on 46th Street or 44th Street. And I went in there and I found the snare drum to match the kit and everything. I
Wow.
found the snare drum. It was the same finish. I bought it and I had it and I played it a bunch with Wynton. And then at a certain point, I took it to probably Joe Costadas and got the edges done, and it
Yeah.
was a great kit. But then I let this guy, it was kind of like trendy to take off the finish and get the natural wood
The,
thing.
the wood finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so it happened. So that happened to that kid. And then it's in Brooklyn. And I ended up donating it to this club. There's a club like the Central Brooklyn Friends of Jazz Association. So it gets played a lot. There was a club in Brooklyn called the Upover Jazz Cafe. And so
Yeah.
I loaned the guy the drums, and then I had like just so many drums. I let him have them, but then I tried to get them back. I thought about it and I said, no, he shouldn't have those drums. He's kind of a jazz dude. And then he was like, no, man, it's too late. It's too late. So he has my kit. He has that kit. And now also it has, instead of the flip up mount that it came with, everybody was doing stuff to drums back then. It's kind of stupid,
Yeah.
but there's a pearl mount on it. There's a pearl mount on it, and there's a rims mount on the tom tom. That's what it is. But it's there, and so they have events and they use it. And I guess they're about to celebrate Max Roach's centennial, like from
great.
this summer on. So it'll be, I'm sure some kids have played on it and learned from it. But what I do have, let me see. You can just see these swirly green drums here.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Look at those.
Now check it out. Oh, there's a little ebony Sonar SQ2. But those drums are Elvin's.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so when I turned 50 years old, Robbie Coltrane, I had a party, big party, everybody was there, it was crazy. Epic party. Robbie Coltrane had bought those, like the two toms, just the two toms at an auction after Elvin passed. And I think they might be on Love Supreme, they're on Ascension, they're on some records and whatever. So he had the two tom-toms. So he gave me one for my 50th birthday. And then a couple of years later, he gave me the other one. He was like, hey, you might as well just take it. So I had the two tom-toms, and I didn't have a kick drum. I didn't have a kick drum for it. So I kept looking around, and a friend of mine, I had Sonar make me I'll make this quick, but I had Sonar make me a kit like this, like an ebony inside and out, SQ2 kit. So for some reason, I had this stupid idea that the interior shells, I got into how birch toms sound. It's like they're kind of sweet and clear, and they don't clutter up things as much as maple. It's not as rich a sound, but it was kind of useful. So I had the idea to get rack toms with birch on the inside. And so I had this kit.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like a 10, 12, 13, and then the rest of the, multiple kick drums, and everything else was maple inside. Everything else was that. And I got it, and I played it like twice, and I found myself never playing it because it just, something about it felt weird. It felt uneven.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had it, and then I said, man, I gotta get maple toms. That's it. And so I called Sonar, and I said, man, I can send you these toms back. And I just need to change them, man. I'm sorry. And they were like, no, just keep them, man. We'll send you the other toms. So they sent me the other toms. And then I have a friend, Steve Waller. He used to work for American Airlines, but he's one of those, I don't know if he's worse than you, but he's very much a drum freak. He has too many drums, like many of us. He has too many drums. And whatever. So he I sent them to him, and then he went to like the Chicago Drum Show, and he saw a 22-inch kick that matched the kit. And so we exchanged them. So I have Elvin's Gretches.
Man. Wow. That's, I think, I last visited Elvin's house after he died. I went and had lunch with Keiko at the apartment.
Yeah.
And this would have been maybe he died in 2004.
Yeah.
And it would have been maybe, I went there while Elvin was still alive, and then I went another time in maybe 2005 or 6, and she still had, a lot of his stuff in the apartment. And I think I might have seen those drums, or maybe the first time, but he had, as you know, he had a bunch of old Gretsch drums, some still in boxes, like some still in the bags. Just, and it's like you feel your heart skip a beat, you know, when you see that stuff. Like it's just something that um, that's got like serious mojo.
Yeah, no, they're
Yeah,
here, man.
good
I'm
for
looking for
you.
more of them, but I use them once in a while. But usually I use them if I play with Robbie Coltrane. I'm like, I got your drums here. I'm playing them. You know, I pull them with him.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
that's great. Well, you know, thank you again for doing this, by the way. Thank you so much. And I want to tell everybody, if you haven't seen the episode we did a few weeks ago to honor the great Pete Zeldman, yeah, Tain was nice enough to be one of the guests on that show. We had a bunch of drummers and friends of Pete, and it just, I just, you know, after we did that, I said, man, we got to do this. So I'm just so glad we were able to do it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's just a nice hanging out period. So that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, likewise, and always. And I was gonna just so fast forwarding a little bit, moved to New York, and you know, you play all those years with Branford and with Wynton. So Branford gets the gig on the Tonight Show, the new, you know, with Jay Leno taking over, and um, and that becomes your gig for a few years, right?
Yeah, 3 years. Yeah.
3 years.
Mhm.
So I, you know, without as Joey Calderazzo says hi to you, by the way.
Hey, what's
Cool.
happening?
Man, Joey, all right. Thanks for watching.
Yeah,
Um, so moving to LA must have been enough of a kind of a right a shock to the system.
definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's cool. It's just it's different. It's different, and there's a reason that there's in New York and that there's in LA, and there's of course folks out there that perhaps would never live in New York and vice versa and stuff like that. I think now it would be easier for me to be out there. You know, I feel like I felt like at the time, you know, it was like more of a entertainment industry, music town and stuff like that. Like that's really why you're there, either to be in a big kick-ass rock band or work in television or work in film and stuff like that. You know, the music more industry. And at the time it just felt like the artistic community that I was aware of was more underground, and you had to kind of look around to, you know, get into the underground scene, or you had to hunt and looking, you know, to find, like, I mean, Billy Higgins was still alive. I could go and see him, but you had to go into the hood and look around. Now I feel like there's more creative stuff on the surface, and the scenes are a
Hmm.
little more integrated and stuff like that. But you know, I embraced it. I feel like they offered Branford that gig, and he gets offered so many things that, you know, sometimes he's like, oh man, they want me to do this, man. I'm not doing that. You know, get out of here with that. He's always like that about everything. And he just kind of, we were on the road, and he just like mentioned it casually. Yeah, they want me to do Tonight Show, man. I'm not doing that, man. Get out of here. And we were like, wait a minute, man. Like, you know, we can get some nice snacks with that Tonight Show. It's like, that might be a nice thing. And so then he considered it. And then, yeah, so then he decided to do it. He decided to take us out there. And yeah, well, the whole thing was like a real different thing, of course. But it's kind of like we went out there, and they had us as guests on the show. And then we had an off day in LA, and they got like real estate people, and they came and they took us around to look at houses and stuff like that, and cars and all that. And we're getting into the lifestyle. And you know, myself and Kenny Kirkland, we had found a house. We had found like a really cool house, like a duplex, like a 3-bedroom house on 2 floors, and it had parked
Mm.
like 5 cars, and it was really cool. And it was just like at the edge of the hood, like kind of close to Pico, but very nice neighborhood, old neighborhood and stuff like that. But what was funny was we signed the lease, and then we went back to New York, and then like about 3 weeks later, the Rodney King verdict happened.
Oh
And there were just
shit! Yeah.
riots everywhere. And the guy that was going to rent us the house, he was like, "Man, I'm selling this house. I'm tearing up your lease. You know, blah blah blah." So we moved to LA for the show, and I lived in a hotel for like a month. And then
No kidding.
yeah, yeah. but
Yeah.
I will say it was cool. I embraced it for what it was, and it's really cool. And I play with people that I played with Elton John and Little Richard and Boys to Men and Mary J. Blige and just like Steve Vai and I played with everybody. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Johnny
Yeah.
Mathis and Willie Nelson, you know. And I really got into it, and I had different kits for stuff, and they gave me like a big drum box that Smitty inherited when he got out there. And so I got into it, listening to the track, and I had my tech like blow samples, so I could try to get the right sound. I had triggers on the drums, and just trying to do the gig for what it was. I really, I did appreciate it. At the same time, I was really missing New York. I still had my place in Brooklyn. And the first year, it was like every break that we got, it's like me and Kenny Kirkland, we were like running back to New York, like jumping on the red eye, going back to the city, and just keeping that vibe happening. But yeah,
Yeah.
but a great experience. I would embrace it more now, but I hadn't gotten my jazzy New York Jones. I hadn't gotten it out of my system.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I can totally. I didn't. I probably saw you a few times during that time, but I sensed that, knowing what I knew and know about you, that it was, and forgive the this might be like a crude expression, but kind of like it was like a day job, really, right? I mean, it was kind of like a, as close to that, and that, for a musician that you could call it that, and but it wasn't. I could see that your roots were really in the New York scene. Like that's, how could it not be?
Yeah, I mean, I could dig it. I had a great car. You could park your car, you get fresh produce, and it was happening. We were
Yeah.
living that life. But
You don't have to wash your car for like weeks out there too, which is great.
which is
It stays
great,
clean.
great for me. That's a plus for
Me
me.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was yeah. What was I gonna say? It started to become like a lunch pail kind of thing. So you do it, and you start to see the sameness of it, and then you're like, oh, wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger just here? You're like, what is this? It's like, it's just like a big cycle. And then the more I did whatever you're doing, that's kind of who you are. And so, I was like creative East Coast musician, but now I'm kind of like entertainment industry musician or whatever. So it's almost like the people that were into creative music or into jazz out there, it's like I was more associated with television. So it's kind of like, you know, um, Cecil Taylor's coming to town. Do you know him? I'm like, yeah, I used to go to his house. He's like, Where Hargrove, Joshua Redman's playing tonight. You should go see him. I'm like, I've known him since he was like 19 or something like that. It's like, people just associate you with this other thing. But I will say that, like so many things that happen for me and stuff like that, we were out there and it's great. And I had some great experiences, and I really know what the entertainment industry is about, and it's, I have friends and stuff like that. But I guess the bottom line is that our lives were already perfect, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we didn't need it. We didn't need it. We already, we were already, even though a lot of the output would be centered around like traditional jazz. It's like we were always like kind of popular, like almost like pop stars doing jazz or whatever. It's like everything was always first class. Sometimes we get on the
Yeah.
plane and we'd be in business class and we see like people in hip hop riding coach and stuff like that. It's like, we always got like great treatment, and
Yeah.
yeah, I've always been very fortunate. Yeah.
No, that's great, man. And I think you said that perfectly too. That like you guys had arrived. I mean, it didn't take you know, that gig for you to arrive. You had arrived, and you know, you could argue that's why people wanted to put you. Why you got that gig, why that was offered, because you had arrived. And
Yeah.
so nowadays, I mean, we're both same age,
Yeah.
older and wiser. Are you more selective about the gigs that you do, like as far as traveling and going on the road? And I know you have a daughter, right?
I have two girls. They're
Two girls, yeah.
fraternal twins. They're
Okay.
they turned 12 this year. and you know, musically inclined and great athletes and stuff like that. And
Great.
especially during the pandemic, although it was unfortunate for many people, you know, it was just nice being home every day, and they were, you know, doing remote school and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm more selective. I do mostly stuff for my friends. I'm not just trying to fill up my schedule. You know, I did okay with like real estate and stuff like that. So it's like I don't have to hustle. Um,
Great.
yeah, so I kind of do stuff for my friends mostly, and then I'm able to lead my own stuff and do that more. So that's nice to be in control of that. And then this latest thing that popped up during the pandemic is this all this opera stuff. So you know, I'm playing with the Metropolitan Opera all the time. You know, these
Yeah, right.
like one. I'm in the middle of a run now, doing Terence Blanchard's Champion opera. So that's the second one I've done at the Met. And then you know, that's nice because it's nice work and it's in town, and it's with really great musicians. Like everybody involved is like very high quality instrumentalists and singers and stuff like that. So yeah, so this week I'm doing operas, but then now I'm doing stuff with the Met, the chamber version of the Met Opera. It's like maybe like 16 musicians and stuff like that. We do reductions, and we're gonna play at the recital hall at Carnegie Hall on Sunday and stuff like that.
Man.
You know, more Grammys coming. You know, so
More Grammys, I was going to say. And and this the opera that you're doing now though, I think you told me that won a Grammy too, right? That's
yeah. Well, this last like a year and a half ago, I did this opera that's about the journalist Charles Blow, and it's written by Terence Blanchard, and it's called Fire Shut Up in My Bones. So this spring that won Best Opera Recording, a Grammy. And then this is a different one. This one is about the boxer Emil Griffith. And I played it previously at the Kennedy Center with the National Opera, but now that's come to the Met, and that opera is called Champion, and it's pretty great. It's like a big cultural event that brings everybody together, and it's high quality, and you know, it's some history
great,
making
man.
stuff. It's very cool to be involved in. Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations, Jeff, man. That's wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but just for music for musicians, just you know, expose yourself to as much things as you can, because you just never know where you're gonna be, man. You never, you know. I never thought I would, you know, I'd be doing this opera stuff, and you know, or working with the Tonight Show, or you know, just keep yourself open, even if you don't foresee yourself doing a wide array of things. You know, just try to have some kind of working knowledge of different stuff. You know.
That's great advice. And also, I think I'll say this because I don't think you will, but just be a good guy like you are too, and that goes a long way too. You know, and
Yeah.
knowing you as long as I have, yeah,
Yeah. I will say that, yeah, my general thing, like people will ask me very specific questions about stuff, but a lot of things for me come back to loving music. Like if you really love music, then that, you know, that makes you treat people better. You don't want to interfere with the music flowing and growing and stuff like that. So that makes you prepare for gigs better, because you don't want to inconvenience people, and you want to help them do their music. You know, it makes you practice, makes you be on time so you don't waste people's time.
yeah,
It just takes care of a lot, you know, and it's really, I can't emphasize enough the privilege of being able to feed somebody like this with music, you know, take care of my family just
yeah,
from
yeah,
having fun, just from like playing some music. It's like I don't really, you know, my father had a job. I don't really have a job. It's like, you know, of course, like everybody says, the job is being there or traveling to be somewhere at a certain time. But you know, it's really,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, the job that you do have is being a great father, which you are, and a great husband, and you do those jobs really well. So, man,
Yeah. I definitely
yeah,
say that now. Like just having kids, and you know, it just really refocuses everything. So it's like, you know,
yeah,
you're not practicing to be fabulous or anyway, or to impress anybody. Well, I'm practicing to take care of them and to be a better person. And they see somebody like try to be dedicated to something, so they, yeah, it's just changes, reprioritizes everything, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this today, and congratulations on all the Grammys you've won in the last hour that we've been doing this.
It's raining. It's great.
It's raining. 7-time Grammy Award winning and counting Jeff Tain Watts,
Yeah, exactly.
my old friend. Thank you so much for being here. Big hand, everybody, for Tain.
Yeah.
Quite entertaining. Okay, I know. Never heard that before, I'm sure, but
It's cool. Yeah. Sorry I talked so long and stuff. We could have got more questions, but it's cool.
no, man, are you kidding? This was incredible. This people loved it, and I want to thank everybody for watching today. Thank you, folks. Tain, hang with me for 1 second, if you would, and I'll see you all real soon. Jeff Tain Watts.
Yeah. Bro.
All right, that's my show. Thanks for listening. You can watch episodes of Live from My Drum Room live in real time on Facebook Live by following my Facebook page, Live from My Drum Room with John DeChristopher, and also my YouTube channel, Live from My Drum Room with John DeChristopher. And while you're there on YouTube, check out my new show, Track Talk, iconic songs with iconic drum parts and the drummers who created them. It's really cool. Check it out. Shorter episodes. You'll love it. And Track Talk is only available as part of my Live from My Drum Room series on my Live from My Drum Room YouTube channel and podcast platforms. So please subscribe. All Live from My Drum Room and Track Talk podcasts are available on all the major podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. Also want to give a big thanks to my friend Steve Gadd for providing the music for my show. That's really Steve. And remember, no drummers are harmed during any episodes of Live from My Drum Room or Track Talk. So drummers, remember, when in doubt, leave it out, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.